Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down the meta, what's happening over in Japan, and how will it impact Taiwan. Japan just had a brand new set. Paradise Dragona is now legal as it just got released on Friday. So we're going to look, what is the impact this has really had on their metagame? I know we just had Stellar Crown, but Paradise Dragona was much more of a sort of a dud sort of set. So are any of these cards actually going to be impactful? And will this really help us in our testing for Stellar Crown as we lead up to the first ever regionals next week in Dortmund, legal in Stellar Crown? But Japan is also gearing up for their next Champions League this weekend. So we're going to see exactly how this sort of City League metagame will impact this event happening this weekend and kind of like what we can expect to see the results do really, really well, especially after looking at the City League. So of course, we're going to break down what's happening in the top 16, look at exactly the top 6 archetypes doing well, as well as also some deck lists as well, and thoughts and feelings about what some of these new cards really mean to it. So, looking at the top 16 breakdown of the City League, we can see that still the likes of Raging Bolt, Charizard, and Dragapult are up there at the top, being about 33% of the metagame. This is absolutely no shock whatsoever. I think these are incredibly powerful. The likes of Raging Bolt is so fast, so aggressive, and it gained a really good new card. It has had the Noctowl, but Noctowl has not been incremented in Raging Bolt lists as much as we would have hoped for. The likes of Briar is actually doing really well, and the new sort of Terra Orb, which we're going to get most likely in our November set, you're seeing a good sort of play because not only do you get your Ogre Punch, but it also helps with your consistency. Charizard, of course, is absolutely incredible with the likes of Briar, with the release of even some brand new ace specs as well. Charizard is just so strong. And that's one of the reasons why I think Charizard is honestly going to be one of the strongest sets going forward. Dragapult obviously did very well, and it's one of the most hyped up archetypes going in the Stellar Crown format. But I generally think it's really strong. If we look at Japan, Japan has always loved the Dragapult list. It's done incredibly well. It was 25% meta share when we're looking at what it actually did in Japan right at the start of their Champions League. But honestly, I would say it's not performing as well this week. I'm going to go into that one because it didn't win as many as you might have thought about. One of the biggest surprises was like some Lugia is doing incredibly well. It is very fast, very aggressive. It didn't really gain anything from the Paradise Dragona set. Yes, you get an additional new switching card like some Surface, you can draw into your 5, but that's really about it. But Lugia, I feel like he's in a really well placed better game. We've seen the likes of Miraidon and Iron Fawn still perform pretty well over in Japan, but they're not winning, they're not doing as well, and they're not having this big, large bench spaces in Miraidon, which we kind of been testing with, and they're kind of going more of the fast, aggressive style of Miraidon, which we're used to. Another real big surprise, we talk about these big two-prize Pokemon, is Roy Moon absolutely dominating Japan. We can see here that it's 4.1%. And one might go is like, why on earth is Koraidon? This is actually representing Ancient Box, because normally Roy Moon does represent Ancient Box as a whole, but Roy Moon is just so strong right now. It is so fast, so aggressive. The mixture of the attachment for turn, the Dark Patch, the Sada, the Pecharan. There are so many things about what makes Roy Moon so strong. Regidrago has fallen completely from grace. I still think it's a pretty strong deck right now in the metagame. It also gains likes of Terra Orb, so you can get your Raging Bolt. Yeah, you get if you're playing Rage Bolts in there, you can get that, but also your Dragapult, your Ogre Ponds, which I really like about this. But the more VM standout brand new archetype which is doing incredibly well is the likes of Sterilage, being 5% of the Toxic Sting results. Granted, it's not winning as many things, but it is a very fun deck. Have a ton of energies, and you can deal out pretty much one hit killing Charizard by turn 2. You have so much discarding factor. You have your Carmine if you're going first. You have even the brand new Ace spec if you want to discard 5 cards from your deck. It's a really interesting and unique metagame. Control has actually had a huge resurgence this week, which we are going to talk about a little bit. If we're looking at these sort of style of decks, ones that perform really well aren't running switching cards. They aren't respecting control. Even like some Noivern is doing really well. They kind of counter out these big basic cards like Raging Bolt, like Roaring Moon. And that's one of the things why I think Control is actually in a well-positioned metagame. Palkia has had a little bit of change as well, kind of going more of the Iron Leads, which has seen some success in sort of the people's testing. I've noticed quite a little bit as well in the end of the Stellar Crown sort of metagame in Japan. We are seeing more of the Iron Leads in there. Sort of like what I really like is playing the loads of switching cards and you play Iron Valiant and you can kind of get some pinging that way. But no, Iron Leads are just such a stronger choice. Honestly, looking at this metagame, Gardevoir again hasn't really changed too much. I think this is a really good representation about where we're going to look into the Dortmund regionals. Granted, obviously, Sterilization isn't going to be legal, but let's see exactly what are the top 6 decks right now. And we can see it has actually shaped up just a little bit. Charizard and Raging Ball kind of like switch places. They're now the Charizard is now the #1 deck, and you can see how well it's been performing overall. But Raging Ball, you can see, has a ton of more results, which is real big surprising. One of the biggest surprising things out of all of this one, despite Dragapult being basically a 13% meta share on the top 16 results, they did only won one City League this week, which is honestly absolutely shocking for basically a top 3 archetype performing really well. Is this a good sign? Is this a bad sign? It got quite a few second places. We know how inconsistent it can really be. It gained a ton of really good new cards like the Sparkling Crystal, like the Crispin, like the Briar. Heck, even some of the underground overdepths, area zero overdepths, you can have multiple large benches. You can have as much consistency draw effect as possible, but it's still not performing really well. Is this something we should really consider about? And obviously, it is only the first full week of City League, so it's still really early to tell. Likes of Lugia can stall. Like I mentioned, they've come right into the burst of the scene. The likes of Noivern doing really, really well in Snorlax. They didn't really gain a ton of new archetypes, similar to the likes of Lugia. But we could talk about some of the cards which you could really add to this one. Regidrago and Gardevoir actually swap places. And honestly, I think it's still a very, very good pick. Both of them are, again, there's not many cards which are really gained, but I feel like they're really well positioned in the metagame. Gardevoir can basically have a single prize board state, so it can go really well in the likes of Regidrago and the likes of Raging Bolt, which is one of the things why I think Gardevoir is a much stronger pick going right now in the format. Now let's have a look at some of the deck lists as well. Let's obviously start off with the likes of Charizard, and this build here is very much like you've been seeing right now and you're constantly testing. Granted, it is a very, very shiny archetype, but we can see here it's playing the Thornton. I talked a lot about it last week, and I really think Thornton is one of the best cards to play right now in Charizard. Not only do you have that additional protection, but you remove any of your liabilities. You can get a Charizard out of nowhere, picture, chain your likes of Radiant Charizard, or more importantly, get more Dusclops and Dusknoirs out, which I am a huge fan. You can even argue if you are going Thornton to get your Dusclops back out, potentially a Night Stretcher could be a good inclusion. I do like the Jamming Tower because loads of these Charizard decks are going with Hero's Cape, and we also see that in Control, and you want to have the big one-hit KO potential. So kind of like removing any of that threat is really nice. Mid Energy as well, because if we're seeing more Roaring Moons, we want to be protected in that sort of way. Going down to 3 Arvins is definitely the hardest thing, but you can see how many supporters we're playing. The item cards haven't really changed too much, and we are going to a still a 4-1 3-line Charizard, so you have got a way to like cut a Charmander to really go into that sort of route, but definitely something to be really more considerate about. Maybe cutting a Charmander for an Arvin to really help you with consistency. Definitely a really good way, and I still like the Unfair Stamp, but also we can play the Hero's Cape. Like I mentioned before, this is how we're seeing Charizard being played right now in our current metagame, going into the Stellar Crown format, and also even the end of the Shrouded Fables. Again, we are seeing the Thornton, the Briar, they are so powerful. We see a high count of Iono, so it's good to be that disruptive capability. You're not running the what's it called again? I'm completely blanking. The Unfair Stamp to have that disruptive capability. So kind of having that Iono for that more effective one could effectively be a good way to play it. I also love having the higher counts from Nestball, so you can really utilize the power of Rotom. So yeah, Charizard is doing incredibly well right now in the metagame. Obviously, it's the best one, but it still could play the brand new ace spec. It's basically the new sort of Battle VIP bars. Let's get as many of your basic Pokemon out and play. So you can get out your Rotoms, you can get all your Charmanders, your Pidgeys, your Duskulls, your Manaphy for protection, because we are seeing quite a bit of Palkia, so we are going to be that threat of that Greninja play, and even sometimes in that Roaring Moon. So I think this is a good sort of ace spec to play. Is it the best one to play? No, but it's a fun one nevertheless to actually kind of see some success. And we are seeing in this list, we are seeing the Thornton, as well as also the Night Stretcher, really combo with that Dusclops, Dusknoir play, which I mentioned. We're seeing Raging Bolt here not really change much at all. It is just so fast, so consistent. You have got the Briar, but the Briar is just the best way around this one. It can help you so much in your Charizard matchup, basically making your Ogerpon take additional 3 prizes from KOing a Charizard, and they're always going to go over 2-2-2 route. One thing which I do like is still think Gastani Shocks is the best single prize attacker right now. You also can get these big one-hit KOs on any sort of big, weak fighting Pokemon. And you might also think the likes of Trapagos is seeing some plays, so it can have a good counter to this one. I love the gusting effects you play in this one with the Counter Catcher, with the Boss's Orders, Prime Catch, as well as also Iron Bundle. Having multiple gusting effects, the thing in Raging Bolt, makes it the fast and threatened scary archetype that we really know and love. Lugia, like I mentioned before, has had some sort of success and did very well. And it has seen here, we've seen them brand new cards. We've seen the new Kyurem. What I like about the Kyurem is if you look back at the Raging Bolt, we can see here it does play 2 copies, basically 3 switching cards. But you can play the Kyurem and it's instantly making sure one of your opponent's Dragon type Pokemon is paralyzed, which I really like. Even like Regidrago, which they aren't really going to be playing a ton of switching cards anyway, maybe 1 or 2, this can really paralyze them quite literally, stop them in their tracks, where you can have this in really good board state as well, and it only relies on your special energies. You're never going to be using the other attack because it does, if we look at the legacy energy, it doesn't really require that sort of requirement. We do play the likes of a Radiant Charizard, as well as also Iron Hands and Wellspring Ogerpon to utilize the Legacy energy, as well as also Luminous energy for the Radiant Charizard. I like this. I like how Lugia is going back to add Radiant Charizard, because it is one of the strongest attacks right now to play in the game. It's very fast, very aggressive. Team up with the likes of Saluna. These can be attacking for basically 0 energy near the end of the game. Lugia, I think, is in a really good dominated spot right now. If Charizard's going to go up, you could potentially add more of the weirdos out there, but having the likes of the Minchino line is really, really strong to get the big one-hit KO potential. So with that, Regidrago, we have noticed quite a bit of change. We see here we are playing the likes of a Terror, but we aren't playing the Hisuian Gudra. We're still playing the 2-1-1 of a Dragon attacker with 2 Dragapults, 1 Giratina and 1 Kirin, because they are the best and strongest attackers right now. But we aren't playing Gudra. We're already in a big one-hit KO format where you're always going to get KO'd anyway back. So having that additional protection actually isn't as helpful as much. And sometimes can hinder your strategy. You want to spread around your damage counter to Dragapult instead of warning your attacks by 80 damage, which I really think is a much stronger strategy. Also seeing likes of Bolton be played in this deck, removing any of our liabilities, potentially going 2 for 2 on using your Kirin attacks, using one from discard part and bring it back out, which I actually am a big fan of this one. I also like this way to remove any of your swap abilities in the early game. Your Serendipity, so you bring them out straight, get them into your Ogerpon so you could potentially have more of the impacting draw factor and get your Regidrago set up. Also, the Team League headquarters, having this one. If we're mentioning Roaring Moon and Raging Bolt are up there as one of the strongest two prize attacking options right now, the big beat stick one, forcing them to have 4 or 3 energies respectively, it's a really good way for attacking. It can be really difficult for them to kind of get around with. You are playing 2 switching outs, and like I mentioned before, I think that's absolutely perfect. You do need this one. We aren't going to see Black Kirin nearly in every single archetype, so definitely something which you don't really need to rely on. Again, only playing 2 fire is definitely a little bit weaker. I would love to go for the a 3-7 split. I think that is a much stronger choice. But honestly, Regidrago's seen some little bit of change. It's quite nice to see. I don't know if it's going to be as strong as it's going to be moving forward. I'm excited to see what new cards are going to be revealed this weekend over in this Champions League. And we aren't seeing any new Dragon types actually make their way into Regidrago, but definitely something to be considered about overall. Now let's look at control. And Control has had quite a huge resurgence. We have a brand new ace spec to play around to remove any of the special energy, stadium cards, and tools, which I'm a big fan of this one. If Lugia has seen a huge increase, this is obviously going to have absolutely amazing stocks in Control. Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon is really good. It stops like Charizard and all those sort of very strong abilities like Regidrago, so they can't actually damage it, which I'm a huge fan about it. And we're seeing a Noivern. We are seeing some lists actually not even play double turbo and having like a 1-1 or 2-2 line of Noivern and just relying on having mist energy, so you're going to energy acceleration twice, which I'm a okay fan about this, but I would much prefer have a double turbo to instantly stop any of these big basic attackers in their tracks. So that's why I really like having the double turbo, as well as also Thornton, because it can come out of absolutely nowhere. The unfair stamp to move, the handheld band to move around your the opponent's energies. This is a very strong control archetype, and I really think we should start respecting it now going into this new format. I do think that if we're going to go with fast, aggressive archetypes and not really relying on their switching outs and going more of the combo pieces, for example, Charizard, this deck can really punish this one with the Cornerstone Ogerpon, with the block clack sort of effect. Yes, you're not going to really run Noivern in this style of decks, but having those sort of 2 threats in general is going to do really, really well and punish this sort of brand new sort of meta, which we're actually starting to evolve. So right now, looking forward to it, Control, I think, is very, very well placed going into the Champions League this weekend. Now let's look at Gardevoir. Again, didn't really gain too much. I like the Gravity Stone. I think that's quite nice, especially with Fluttermane, just slowing down your opponent this way whilst you can potentially build up. A board state, spread around some damage counters from Monkey Dory and Fluttermane. I think it's quite a fun sort of way to play Gardevoir. As we mentioned before, we are seeing the Moonlight Hill see some success in Gardevoir and most of our lists for that additional healing factor. But I think going back to this sort of build here, growing with the Churro, I would love to have a Collapse Stadium card, but they're really opting this one to really prioritize getting all of their basic Pokemon out there with having the Artisan out in play. So definitely something to be a bit more considerate about with your Gardevoir going forward. Now let's look at some of the best of the rest, the ones that maybe didn't do as well going in as in the top 6, but definitely something to really keep in your radar. And of course, let's look at Dragapult. And we can see here that there isn't really gaining anything. We're seeing this normal sort of things. We're seeing the Crispin, we're seeing the Sparkling Crystal. We aren't seeing the Briarpool. We are seeing the Gravity Stone. I mentioned this before. Gravity Stone with it up on a Dragapult, you can store something in the active spot, spread around your damage counter with the Alakazam. So force something to stay in the active spot, move around, and potentially take multiple huge prize turns, which I am a huge fan about. Again, you are scared of these Raging Bolts, these Roaring Moons. So having the Team League headquarters is an absolutely incredible save against this one. We aren't seeing the Dusknoir. They're not going with any of those fun gimmicks, but we are still playing the Halucha because having looked for 70 HP above the basics is definitely very much you want to remove on play. The rest of it isn't nothing too scary. We're not playing the Briar, which is definitely a little bit of a shocking factor. But I've noticed that most Dragapults are kind of going with more consistency. They aren't relying on that Briar. They are mostly rewarding the Crispin plays, the Sparking Crystal, because you want to really prioritize and streamline your attacks instead of potentially your gimmicky combo turn near the end of the game. So definitely something a bit more considered about with Dragapult. Another one is Ceruledge. And I mentioned before a deck which has a ton of energies on and can just draw for your deck really quickly. We have a ton of draw factors like the Zamazenta, the Squawkabilly, the Verizian, not Verizian, the Fezandipity, the Greninja, as well as also the Carmine, the Boss's, not Boss's Orders, the Professor's Research. You have a ton of draw factor in this deck. There's also a ton of discarding factor with the Earth and Vessel and Ultra Ball. Pair completely, absolutely well together. I love the Mist Energy as well, to have that additional protection, protect your target decks from the likes of Dragapults, protecting also your Ceruledges from Roaring Moons. So they have to actually attack with their discarded stadium kind of potentially use a Bandy Mochi to potentially get the big one-hit KO on you. I really like this one. It's a deck where Briar works incredibly well, where your opponent is always going to potentially go the one price card, remove the likes of the Charcadet early on, and then you can go into your Ceruledge to KO that way. Also, they can get to the 3 prizes or even the 2-2, and they can easily win that sort of route. I like Ceruledge. I think it's really fun. I'm excited to see in Sparking Surges when we get this in November time, how well it is actually going to do in our new metagame, because we've only seen half of that set. We're obviously going to see quite new reveals this weekend, so we're actually going to see exactly what will make Ceruledge do well. Will it actually do well in the Champions League? Obviously, it's a format which we're never going to play in, so I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to well perform. Like the Roaring Moon, I keep talking about it, and we can see here, this one here is very fast and very aggressive. I like the catches as well for that additional disruptive capability. One of the best things about it was supporter liner. One boss's orders, 4 starters. Because you're playing a ton of gusting effect, the catches and the prime catcher as well. You don't need to have any more of the other sort of casting effects. You don't need any more of the disruptive capabilities because you want to draw everything overall. I love the enhanced hammer to remove any of the scary liabilities, like the mist energies around. Heck, also some of these even legacy energy is really good to remove as well, like to make sure you can actually take those 2 prize KOs. I think this is a very fast, very aggressive deck. We are seeing more Manapees go in this one because this is the energy switch build with 2 water energies. Yes, that's a little bit thin. I would love to go for like actual 6, so you can actually kind of like streamline your Greninjas out. Not 6, 3 energies. You can actually streamline your Greninjas constantly. But honestly, Roaring Moon is in a really good spot. It's very fast, very aggressive. The single prize one has like really good options in the late game. But honestly, I think this is a very fast, very scary archetype, which I believe is going to do incredibly well going forward in this tournament. Palkia. Now, I've tested a lot of Palkia, and we have noticed a lot. One thing I've noticed the most, I believe, is definitely the best way to answer around Charizard. You can constantly go around the likes of the Dragapults, the Gardevoir through the 300 HPs, you can easily do that, but the 330s is really difficult. If they have a bench of 5 and you have a bench of 8, you hit 320 damage, which is an amazing number, but you always 10 short on Charizard. That's where Iron Leaf really comes in handy. We're seeing here quite a lot of switching cards, with the likes of Kyurem, the new Surfer card, which I really like, is switch and draw into TF5, but also having a guaranteed switch and Prime Catcher, so multiple switching outs as well. So you're always going to get out your Iron Leaves. Having a 3-3 line of Knocked Out is absolutely fair, especially with a 1-1 line of Bibarel. I also think having 2 Trapagos is much stronger than having potentially Wellspring Marth Ogopon. I like Wellspring Marth Ogopon as an attacking option, but it can be quite a bit difficult to really kind of like get that big kind of like the attacking offer as well. Whereas here we can play 2 copies of the Glass Trumpet and actually attack with this one quite easily as well. And you can even energy accelerate the grass energies to this one and not rely on having your water energies. I think Palkia is in a good position. I don't know if the meta is going to be rewarding Palkia as much, as we are seeing lots of these big, fast, basic Pokemon doing incredibly well, as well as Charizard, the high HP ones. So Palkia can struggle a little bit, but I think in this sort of as the meta sort of progresses, this is going to be well placed going into this new format. And Gholdengo. This is fun. Another Palkia style deck here, and it's seen quite a lot of support and love in Japan. It's very fast. It can hit a lot of damage. We also have that new Energy Search Pro, which could see some play in Gholdengo, but I think Hyper Aroma is much stronger because you can get all of your Gholdengos out. There's also your Dusclops as well, so you can actually put some additional damage counters that way on your opponent's side. So definitely something I just want to mention about it, because I've seen lots of people like think and talk about Gholdengo, and it's doing really well in Japan. So now to actually look at sort of the tier list as well at the end of the first full week of the City League Championships. We can still see here that in their S tier, it is still Raging Bolt, Charizard, and Dragapult. They've been up here pretty much the entirety of the Stellar Crown format because it is so strong, especially in the introduction of the Paradise Dragona set. If we look at the A tier, we can see the likes of Lugia, Gardevoir, Ceruledge, Regidrago, and the likes of Roaring Moon at the A tier. And finish off B tier, we have the likes of Ancient Box, Stall, Palkia, Gholdengo, Miraidon, and Iron Thorn staying exactly the same percentage as last week. So if we look at the Champions League, what exactly do we think we could do well? I think some of the top decks going into the format, the ones that we're going to see the most on stream, I like something Raging Bolt, Charizard, Dragapult, and I could even say like Resurgence as a brand new toy. I think a very fast set which I think could do the best of the basic Pokemon. I think Roman will have a really good finish in the top 8, whereas I think Palkia might finish just a little bit out of the top 16, maybe even a top 32 result. I think Surgeons could do very, very well, maybe potentially even getting multiple day 2 spaces. Potentially, I would hope to get top 16 result. What do I think is actually going to win this one? I think it's still very early to tell. I think the likes of Charizard and Dragapult are in a really good spot to actually take down the tournament. But Japan, they love Lugia, they love Regidrago, they love Miraidon, and I'm never shocked if they actually perform incredibly well. Remember that one tournament? I believe it was the Japan Nationals, when there was only 2 decks in top 8, which was Regidrago and Lugia. So I would not be shocked at all if these two do incredibly well in this new format. So just looking ahead, what can actually do well? I think all of those decks are in a really well position. I think Raging Bull, do not be shocked if we potentially could get a new vicinity back-to-back, so I'm doing incredibly well in the Japan National Champions League. Can Dragapult actually bounce back? We've seen it being this incredibly powerful percentage style deck, but it didn't win and perform as well as people thought about. I think Dragapult can really bounce back. All we need to do is kind of remove some of the gimmicky cards like the likes of the Dustin line and the Bright and really focus more on the consistency and streamlining your constant attacking going with. And can the new cards actually be very impactful? We're seeing Cerulege do incredibly well. It's very fast, very aggressive, and a ton of fun. But can any of the other sort of new archetypes, like the Alolan Executor, like the Duraludon, see any sort of play overall? Or are we just going to wait till we saw the rest of the new cards from Sparking Surges this weekend in Japan? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this latest episode of Looking Ahead. If you have, please make sure to like, subscribe. Again, thank you so much for the support I've really had on this channel this past month. It's been absolutely amazing. It truly has blown me away. So thank you, every single one of you. And we'll be back in a few days with hopefully a couple more deck profiles. So yeah, hope you have a brilliant rest of your day, and I'll speak to you guys later. Bye for now.